Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to the Geo Frankie podcast. It's the same transfer rumours, but updates on those transfer rumours. And Frankie, I'd like you to kick us off with Duran, if you don't mind. Would that be okay with yourself?
Sounds good to me.
The player himself has spoken in regards to being linked to West Ham. And this is what Jhon Duran had to say himself. He said, "The fact my name is being mentioned by such big teams, it is very important for my career. I'm happy that there are these rumours, and let's hope that something concrete happens." Now, when it comes to transfer rumours, it's all speculation, but when the player himself is suggesting he wants to go, his agent has also spoken, saying that they're hoping that something's going to happen. It does feel it almost feels inevitable that he'll leave Aston Villa. Whether he comes to West Ham or not is what remains to be seen. But it certainly feels a bit more promising than what it perhaps was a couple of days ago. But what's your reaction to those quotes from the player? Because on one side of it, it's good. But on the other side of it, it makes me a little bit uneasy, truth be told.
Yeah, I agree. I love the fact that he's saying big club and so on. Is it because he really means it, or is it because he's trying to poke Aston Villa? And that's my worry. It comes across like he's being a little bit naughty there, and that isn't in good taste, unfortunately. So I think more and more that we hear while this is going on, that he has got this really temperamental attitude and behaviour, and I think maybe more has happened than just him causing a bit of havoc in the residential areas that the club own and stuff like that. It seems like he can really cause quite a lot of issues. So I don't know, I've had the conversation multiple times and I still look back and I still go, Wan-bissaka and he's driving incidents, you still think Arnautovic and his gambling incidents, and you've got allegedly, and then you've got all these other bits and pieces that have gone on before, Di Canio and all of his antics, and you just look and just think, well, sometimes geniuses are a little bit wild, and I think good managers are the ones who don't try and totally tame them, because then you take out that little bit of spark that they have. So, but it's how you can put your arm around them, allow them to express themselves without it becoming disruptive of the rest of the squad. So I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'm not gonna sway either way. If he comes, I really hope it works out, and I think I'd be all positive about it and just hope that we can get the best out of him. But there's no question that may come with a little bit of trouble.
I think, when I heard the quotes from his agent first today and then the player, I thought, right, okay, he's definitely going. He probably already was. I think he'd already burnt the bridges with Aston Villa. So it's like he's not really got anything to lose at this point because they want to offload him. He wants out. So what he said is all but sealed his exit. But I think he'd already done that. I think the only thing he has done is just really agitate Aston Villa fans prior to leaving. And if he does come to West Ham, when we do play Aston Villa, now this is going to be the next key point, but when we do play Aston Villa, I expect him to get booed a lot by those Villa fans because he ain't leaving paying respect to Aston Villa. And also, we played him in the first game of the season. I never considered this. It was a patron that said it to me. I said, well, I don't think they're going to sell him to us until after that game, because why would they give him to us and then we use him? First game of the season against Aston Villa. You can almost imagine what the headlines are going to be. Duran bags a brace against Villa or something like that. And maybe there could be a bit of a gentleman's agreement between the clubs, which is we just don't play him. But when he's speaking like that, I'd love to see that Duran up front against Villa in the first game of the season. He's going to turn into Prime Ronaldo. That's a guy who's going to have a point to prove. I feel confident that we can get him. I've always been quite optimistic of this deal happening. I feel even more confident now. But I also feel more confident it will be quite a short-term signing, that after 18 months, 2 years, maybe he'll think, right, I'm ready to leave West Ham now and I'm going to go to a Champions League club and I'm going to navigate my exit from the club, because he's showing at Villa Park that actually if he wants out, he'll get a way out of it. And however he does that, and he's just been incredibly childish at Aston Villa, and I'm just hoping that, I've got reservations over his hold-up play, but that can be coached pretty easily by somebody that knows what they're doing. And he's 20. He can develop that part of his game. But in terms of his attitude, I think that's a whole different level of coaching that required there. And it's not just one incident or one thing at Aston Villa. It's quite a lot of stories you hear from Villa fans. He smashed up 2 flats and he's living in the same block of apartments as Unai Emery. He doesn't follow Aston Villa on social media. When he has a good game or he scores, he follows Aston Villa, starts liking their posts. The next game he's on the bench, he unfollows Aston Villa and starts liking other teams' posts. And it's just, the more you hear, you just think this guy's going to be a basket case. But I don't know. There's if you can make him your main man and get goals out of him, he maybe become this hero. But I just think it can turn sour very, very quickly. And he scares me a little bit, Frankie, because I think, what I've seen in Aston Villa, I think he's got all the potential to go on. And Villa fans themselves say this guy could be a superstar. Like this kid's got it all, but he's a bit Balotelli in the sense that he's going to come with off-field antics and it's going to cause problems. And I'm just a bit concerned that he's going to come here and maybe after a year or two, we're going to have this thing that we have with Dimitri Payet and Markovic, where they're like, I want out. I want gone, and the club we just have to sell them. It's already a bit of a basket case. He's not even a West Ham player yet. There's already this drama and soap opera aspect to the transfer. Do you think we'll end up signing him?
I think in the past, if Moyes was still manager, I'd say no. He wouldn't have it. He'd do everything he could to block it because he doesn't like those bad apples in the camp. He was very reluctant to let anyone in who could unsettle the sort of squad harmony, if you like. So I think Lopetegui's probably a little bit more confident in his own man management ability that he could tame somebody like that and get the best out of them. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think from the board's perspective, they're probably looking at it like it's a opportunity to get someone for, while it's still a significant investment, I think for a striker already been around the Premier League, I think they'd probably look at it like, actually, this is quite a good deal for us. So I think they'd be happy to do the deal. I think Lopetegui would be confident that he could get the best out of him. I think his energy and the way that he plays could certainly be a real positive thing. And if I'm honest, we're looking at those, and I know we haven't had Antonio in there yet, and we haven't had other people and certain personnel playing in the matches. But all round West Ham at the moment, from senior level to youth level, we have a huge, there my camera's just decided to start moving around, a huge void of strikers. It's a bit of a problem. And some people say, yeah, okay, but we haven't had Kudus. We haven't had Bowen playing yet. We've still got Callum Marshall that's knocking around and stuff like that. I've watched all the friendlies, and from senior squad right down to the youth game that I watched, there is a massive, just strikers are missing from the equation. So we just need some strikers at the club, right? To be honest.
The last thing I'll add on him before we move on to the right back is that part of the whole spiel about Duran is that apparently he's spoken to Lopetegui, and one of the reasons he wants to move to West Ham is because he wants to play under Lopetegui. That's very encouraging. That means he's heard something, but also that Lopetegui's spoken to him and decided he still wants to go ahead with this deal after speaking to him. And I think that I know there's a lot of frustrations because it looks like we're penny pinching to get this deal done, that Villa want 40, we're offering 35, but Villa want 40 million. We're trying to offer a lot of it as add-on clauses. So the payment, the deal could be worth up to 35 million, but it might only be 25 million. And the other 10 are add-ons depending on the success. I completely understand why the club are doing it that way, because there has to be concerns over the longevity of Duran at West Ham. So we can get a lot of this deal structured in the sense that it's around his appearances, his goals. So if he does kick off in a year or two time and leave, he hasn't met those milestones. And actually the club have saved quite a lot of money. The problem is Aston Villa are probably also expecting him to kick off in the short term, thinking we ain't having this because he's not going to do 200 games for you and he's not going to score 100 goals because by the time he's back 50, he'll be looking for a move to the Champions League. So I actually think West Ham are doing the right thing being patient here, because that guy is definitely making sure he's getting out of that club this summer. Duran and his agent have just basically said to Villa, you need to sell him. He's not coming back. You need to get rid of him. So I can see why we're being a bit patient. But one player that we are supposedly after, Frankie, is Mazraoui of Bayern Munich, right back. And this is coming from Platternberg. Again, this is an update today, who is Bundesliga reporter for Sky Sports, who may or may not have links to Tim Steidten. I believe he does. But a few subscribers are giving me a row for suggesting that. But I still think Platternberg has links to Tim Steidten. I've presented my evidence already. However, this is what Platternberg says. He says, if Mazraoui leaves Bayern Munich, then it will be a direct sale or a loan with an obligation to buy. Mazraoui does not want a loan. He's focused on a permanent deal. Now, obviously, a loan with an obligation is pretty much a permanent deal anyway. It says negotiations between Bayern and West Ham are ongoing, but no agreement yet. Bayern are demanding 20 million euros all in. Man United is still there, but they have to sell Adam wan-bissaka first. I mean, this is good for West Ham, right? So we might want Mazraoui, and we want wan-bissaka. Man, you want Mazraoui. Well, it's a case of, well, before you get him, you've got to sell wan-bissaka. In regards to the Moroccan right back, do you know much about him? Is he somebody that you'd like to see at West Ham?
And only from sports games and stuff like that, from whether it be FIFA with a boy or whatever. So, never really watched any of him in terms of actual match time or anything like that. But for me, this is not so much the, like you say, the player. I think it's just becoming very clear that we are absolutely out there to bring in an alternative to Soufal, one that looks like they actually would be first choice over Soufal as well. And that's not saying that Soufal shouldn't fight for his position and have the attitude that even if this new player comes in and might be the one who's maybe in the mind of the man who's going to play, that I can't force my way back into that position. So I think that's a good thing. But it was kind of what we said in all the build-up and everything else to when Lopetegui signed, and everyone was saying, look, what's the positions that we feel like we really need for his style and his system. And I just kept saying right back. That was the obvious thing for me that he needed. And I think in the pre-season matches, we've seen how important that side of the pitch is going to be. We've seen how important that the right back becomes in that system. And I know obviously Soufal hasn't been featured much yet, and Kuda seems to be the one who's sort of been playing in that role quite a lot. But we need that person in. And it seems like we're doing the right things. Like you say, we're kind of playing it quite clever again here, actually. It's like, well, they're the two men that seem to be available. They're the ones that fit. If you end up with either wan-bissaka or you end up with the other guy, then, that's fine. We've still filled that position that we need. Yeah,
I think it's calling Man United's bluff a little bit here. So you don't want to deal with wan-bissaka, that's fine. We're going to go get that guy that you want to replace wan-bissaka. So it puts Man U under a little bit of pressure, calls their bluff. I think, again, I'm happy with how we're going about this business. I think there's an injury history concern over Mazraoui, but when I've seen him play, I've liked him. Admittedly, it's not loads, mainly Champions League games for Bayern Munich and a handful of Bundesliga games. And while he's a right back, and I looked at the statistics, and last season he predominantly played right back. I feel like most games I watched him, he was actually left back last season, but I thought he did okay filling in there, considering it's not his natural position. And I'd be more comfortable with, if we did sign him, that he can actually cover for Emerson if needs be. Appreciate we've got Creswell, but for whatever reason we didn't want to use Creswell. We could use Mazraoui and then play Soufal at right back. I'm still hoping for wan-bissaka, and I'm almost weirdly, despite the rumours not hotting up too much Frankie, I feel confident we're going to sign wan-bissaka. I don't know why. I just feel like everything makes a little bit of sense, and it's affordable, 10-15 million. I think it's a good deal for what you're getting in terms of the player, homegrown, his age. And I know the talk was that we're not too keen on his wages of 90 grand a week. Well, I'm not having that, because his agent is someone that David Silva knows very well. So David Silva will have known exactly how much his wages were prior to entering any negotiations. And I don't think 90 grand a week's that expensive. It is, but he won't be Bowen, Zuma. There's enough players that'll be paid more than him. There'll be enough players compatible wages, possibly Souček, Areola. They'll be in and around that mark as well. But also, wan-bissaka signs a 5-year contract, say, in 3 years' time on 90 grand a week. I think that's good value for a right back and a homegrown right back, as far as I'm concerned. So Mazraoui, a yes, but wan-bissaka is also a yes for you.
Yeah, I think so. Interestingly as well, this morning on TalkSport, Kevin Nolan was asked, and I know the ship has sailed, so I'm not trying to be provocative here, but he was asked who the most underrated player was at West Ham while he was around the club. He said Ben Johnson. I thought it was a really interesting thing to say.
It is a very interesting thing to say. You know who I know, right?
Hmm.
And that lines up with you know who I know what he says in regards
Okay.
to that. I believe the exclusion of Ben Johnson in some teams last season was more political rather than ability, in a sense that a contract couldn't be resolved, so he wasn't allowed to play, rather than the fact that Moyes didn't rate him. It was that Moyes wasn't allowed to use him as such. But it all depends. Hearsay until proven otherwise, I guess. But that's an interesting comment. Before we move on, got another couple of topics in regards to actual matches this time. Please do subscribe. You need to have a chat, drop a like on the video if you're enjoying as well. Pleased to see so many of you enjoying the addition of Frankie to the channel. Made a few sign-ins recently. Frankie over here. We've got Babbling Irons over on Patreon. Just launched a new Patreon podcast as well. It's called See You Next. It's Overland and Sea, but the C is a C rather than an SCA. Overland in capital C. That's just been launched too. So pleased to see so many of you welcoming Frankie. And the ones arguing with Frankie as well.
It's good. It's what we like.
Frankie, on Saturday, you went off to watch under-21s play Ebbsfleet. What's your mini review of the game? Anyone stand out, good or bad?
Yeah, so it was very similar to last year in many ways. It obviously is this. It's the game that the under-23/under-21 seem to use as their first game back after their holiday. So they all go up to Ebbsfleet. It's the first one back. They're all a little bit unfit, all a little bit overweight, and all need to get back into ship shape again. So Steve Potts was there. He took a back seat, very sort of involved with the technical guys who were sort of watching from above, and there was a lot going on there. Pretty much a media blank for it because the game was going on in Dagenham. It didn't really get much attention. There wasn't really the starting lineups posted anywhere. It was kind of the forgotten match, if you like.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything apart from you.
No. So yeah, it was one of them ones that sort of went massively under the radar, but still, it was really interesting because what we got was a good look at the players who maybe don't always feature when the sort of better of that crop of players are obviously with the first team over at Dagenham. So we got a little bit more of a look at some of the players who wouldn't always be in the starting 11. And they also had some trialists there as well. So we got to see, funnily enough, the trialist was striker. So it was glaringly obvious from the first 10 minutes that we don't have a striker available at the moment. If Callum Marshall's going to go off with a senior squad, then there is no one else. I had a tough time. Obviously, he's playing a big, strong Ebbsfleet, are known for being quite physical. They're a big physical club. And actually, they've got some really good sort of higher level league players. Josh Wright is their captain. They've got Ben Chapman down now. They even had a guy, he didn't feature, but they had a guy who used to be with Middlesbrough and then was with Chelsea for a while. So they're always kind of quite cleverly picking up players who, you know, slightly on the decline in terms of their career, but very sound footballers, just really good technical ability. And it shows. They're organised, they're physical, they're big, they're strong. And yeah, it looked like men v boys for the most part, if I'm totally honest. Luizal started. I wanted a good look at him. I thought that was quite interesting because obviously there's been a lot of talk around him at the moment, whether he'll be signing up or going elsewhere. He looked like he was still fighting for the cause, if you like. He was putting himself about a lot. However, for a man who's supposed to be the more senior person within that back line, his communication was poor. We was getting caught out a lot down our left-hand side, their right-hand side. That's where the goal came from for us to go 1-0 down. And there were times where he was great at recovering for maybe the fact that he was positionally not where he should have been. Don't get me wrong, he'd put his head down, his pace and the ground he could cover and the determination to get there, fantastic. He actually saved us going 2-0 down by literally going from one side of the box all the way across to the other side and managed to get a last gasp tackle in. So he's obviously got a bit of ability about him, and he actually got taken off, and within 60 seconds of him being taken off, they scored from a cross and a header. So without him in that back line with his height and with his strength, it was easy pickings for Ebbsfleet in terms of their, much bigger frame and much bigger players. So we went 2-0 down, and we didn't really have much to offer. We really struggled. The trialist had a really tough day, really couldn't make much happen. In the end, Adieli, which was one of the guys who really impressed me, put him in. 1-on-1 with a keeper, didn't look like he knew what he wanted to do with it, totally froze, rabbit in a headlight moment. Here you are, here's your chance, you've had nothing all game, you're through 1-on-1, open your body and slot it in the corner, and he took so long to do anything about it that a defender come in and took the ball off him. So shame for him, he didn't really stand out or make anything happen. But the big pick for me was Sawyer. Sawyer was brilliant. He's in terms of his physical ability and in terms of his frame and his strength, he was the one who didn't look out of place. He could live with all of their midfield. He could live with their defence. And I looked after the game because he looked like he was this big unit because he was so strong and he wasn't getting pushed off the ball. I thought he's got to be bigger than 6 foot, but he's only 6 foot. Looked so much bigger, but for a guy who's got all of that strength, his ability with his feet, I can't believe how good feet he had. And there was a couple of times where he just took on the entire team. He got frustrated and thought, right, I'll show you what I'm all about. And he'd literally go past 4 or 5 players comfortably. Yeah, so Sawyer's previously played in the striker role for us, but he played in the number 8. Looked like it suited him perfectly. I think he's done all right as a striker before. He scored plenty of goals, but for me, he could win possession back so well. He was great at recovering possession, great at putting his foot in, being strong and physical, great at getting the ball and then bringing the ball forward. So I thought it all suited him, and had a little bit of research after the game of what the sort of plan is with him. And they'd had a discussion, West Ham, with Gillingham. And they'd allowed him to go there for a week, the week before this match, spend some time with them in training, and then play half of their friendly against Millwall. So he'd been down there, he'd played the first 45 minutes for Gillingham against Millwall, for them to have a look and see if they felt he was the man to go on loan to him this season. He'd then obviously come back to us, he's played that game. I think whatever we're doing with him, it needs to be in this light of the right move to kind of bring him on and develop him, because for me, he was standout. He wasn't just the best player of West Ham's players on the day, he was the best player on the pitch. And if you're that good and you're standing out that much, then we need to make sure we're developing on, bringing him forward, and giving him the best chance of potentially growing into a career for West Ham. He would be my only pick of the day that I thought, who can step up and make it in a sort of in the Premier League, and he was the guy.
Well, there you go. One to keep an eye on next season, whether it's at Gillingham or West Ham on the 21s. And from friendly to a other friendly, Frankie, our last topic of the day, the Betway Cup. Now, Sean's done a little bit. There's a bit of guesswork here, but it's very educated guesswork by Sean. He sort of looked at what he thinks the tickets have, the number of tickets the club have released for the friendly, tickets left available to purchase, and obviously you can work out how many have actually been sold. And it works out around about 7,500 tickets have been sold so far. That only 9,000 are available to purchase, and we haven't sold out that. And there are only 2 lower tiers of 2 stands will be open for the actual match. And there is obviously a bit Boycott Betway Cup campaign going on at the minute. And I've actually seen some people say they've bought tickets, but they ain't going because they didn't realise there was a campaign and when they purchased them at the time. Surprised at the ticket sales being so low?
I am, because I just haven't seen enough of the Boycott Betway Cup. I'm not sure that's purely down to the boycott, if I'm totally honest, but we do normally have a good crowd, so that must be playing some part. But I just haven't heard enough of this is actually what we are doing.
I think it was started by a West Ham fan on Twitter called Chris Mills, who's, a big West Ham fan. He's quite prominent on Twitter, and he's very sort of anti-price increase, etc. I actually think it was him just off his own back when they announced this game. I think he just basically replied saying boycott Betway Cup. I think he might have made his own graphic and he just started it, and other people have sort of gone with it, and it's almost become sort of an unofficial campaign, if you like, by just one West Ham fan starting it and everybody going, do you know what, that's a good idea, I'm also boycotting this, and it's just gained a little bit of traction on social media. So I think it's not really like an official campaign as such. I think it's just like West Ham fans deciding off their own back, let's turn this into a little bit of a Betway boycott the Betway Cup. So do you know what I mean? It's not really a campaign, but it's become one, which sometimes is the best way of going about things, where it's just not organic, done out of passion and love. I'm a little bit surprised at the low ticket sales, mainly because how expensive the Premier League ones are. It's almost like, well, you want to go, this is the game you got to go to because you can afford to go to this one perhaps, but you won't be able to afford to go to see it. Definitely not Villa or Man City, but even the other ones that are to come after it, they're too expensive. So this is the game to go to. But there is a little bit of me that's quite pleased that the club are maybe struggling to sell ticket sales. Now, to be honest with you, Frankie, I think they'll sell it out. There's still a couple of weeks before the game. And if it's the weather forecast is in their favour and stuff like that, and the club haven't really done too big a marketing campaign for it just yet, I'd imagine it'll get ramped up and they'll probably sell the tickets. If not, they'll just hand them out to the local community. So
that's what they'll do.
Sold out. All tickets gone, even if they've given out freebies, which they're supposed to do. You know, when they moved into the London Stadium, I think it was 10,000 tickets per season the club pledged to give to the local communities in Newham. So I think they'll fill it up eventually. I'm just wondering if maybe the club will just go, you want to fight, let's have a fight, we ain't streaming the game kind of thing. And so only the 9,000 that are there will get to actually see it. I mean, they might charge for it or something, but I wouldn't be surprised if the club decide to pick the battle with this one and try and take the fan base on. So we'll wait and see. But it sounds like they're struggling to shift the tickets for this one. Are you going to the...
No, I'm standing by my guns, and I'm standing with the West Ham fans who have decided that I just felt it was a good thing, a good opportunity to show that we're not happy. And I think it was the right way to go about it. Whether or not the club try and save face, because that's effectively what they'll be doing. They'll be saving face. And do you know what? They'll use it. If they do have to give away the tickets, they also will, their ego won't even allow them to do that under the radar. They won't just give away all those tickets and think, right, we'll keep that hush-hush and it will look like we've filled a stadium. They'll have to come out and tell everyone how amazing they are for giving away all these tickets. They don't want to give them away. If they could sell them, they would. But if they have to give them away, they will. And then say, look how amazing we are. We've done this amazing charitable work by giving away all these tickets. It's just the typical political stance that West Ham take on things. So, but no, I'm standing by it. My dad did phone me up and said, right, what we doing? Are we going? I normally enjoy it. The sun's normally out. You can go and have a beer. The boy can take a football and play on the fields outside and all that sort of stuff. And it's normally one of the best ways to get up and ready for a season. So, and I said to you, this was an opportunity for us to all get back and be united again and stand arm in arm and, just get ready for this new refreshing season where we can all be together again. So that was what I'd hoped. But no, we have to make a stand, and whether or not, I'd rather it be at that game than at the first game of the season, which we need to just be behind the team. We've got to get off to a good start. Lopetegui needs to get off to a good start. And we need to go into that first main game with no issues lurking or hanging over So do it then, get it out of the way, boycott it, show that we're not happy. And the club will know how many are not happy if the tickets don't sell. It will, even if it's a silent way of them knowing that we've got an issue, they'll feel it, they'll know. And then, and I know some people, they might, we're not going to stream it. And some people are abroad will miss out because they don't get many opportunities to watch stuff and whatever else. But at the end of the day, we've got to make a stand. We've got to do something. And I think this is the best way to do it. That's been suggested so far.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When it first came out about the boycott, the Betway Cup, part of me thought, well, this is actually a game that is possibly affordable. And if we're campaigning for affordable football, I think maybe we're picking the wrong game, because basically we're saying don't go to that game. But actually, that's the game that maybe some families can afford to go to. And I have to be I felt a little bit conflicted by it. I think it's a good campaign, and I think those that can afford to go to the Premier League ones, and that certainly, yes, don't go to this one. But I do still think that actually there is the flip side of this, and if we're sort of here banging the desk saying we need cheaper tickets, and actually this game is one of the cheap ones. I've been conflicted, truth be told, Frankie. I don't begrudge anybody going. I'm not going to say why are you going, because I get it. This is for the reasons you've said. But also, maybe this is a game that some people can afford to take their kids to, and it's only this game that they can. And I don't have to hire. I'm not going to sit here and say don't do it, because I think, well, actually, this is what we're campaigning for: accessibility. This game is accessible. So I've struggled with the models around this one. Truth be told, Frankie, I think I've just been. I can see both sides of the coin here, but for those that are going, I hope you do enjoy it, because, like Frank said, it is usually a good day. I've been to a couple, not all of them. I've been to. It hasn't really been any to go to. We don't normally have a home friendly, but the ones I have attended, I've enjoyed a few beers in the sun. Meet up with your friends for the first time for 3 months because of the last season. You go in, your new players, sometimes your new signings are on show, the new kit's there. I use it as an opportunity to go sit in a different part of the ground as well. So obviously I got my season ticket seat. I'll normally go sit in a different stand just for a different view, see what it's like over there. So it can sometimes be a good day. And it's just a shame that it's been spoiled by the club, and that some people will have to decide what to do. Do back the boys of the campaign, or do I go to the game that I want to go to? And it's horrible that people have been put into that situation, but it's one that, point the finger at the club for. And the people are thinking, well, why are you going to discuss the Man City ticket prices? We've covered season tickets in Aston Villa, and it's all part of one story. And we're going to do a specific video next week, probably. I just want to give it more attention, more of a spotlight, because the club ain't changing, the club ain't budging, and the more details that come out, the worse it gets and the worse it looks. And I know there will be some people listening going, oh, Geo, give it a rest. You don't stop going on. I won't give it a rest, because the moment we do that is the moment they've won completely, and they'll just continue to take more and more and more. We have to do the opposite. We have to keep on banging on about it. We have to keep getting louder about it if we want change. And I just think we should all want change. We should all want better. And it's not just a West Ham thing. It's a Premier League thing. It's every club's going through the same thing at the minute. And I think a lot of clubs at the minute that perhaps haven't gone as far as West Ham, I think their fan bases are looking at West Ham thinking, whoa, if we don't start now, this is what's coming to our club. So we need to help the West Ham fans. We need to get on board with whatever West Ham fans are doing and help them, because in 12 months and 24 months, it might be our club. And we're going to need West Ham fans to come and give us a hand with our petitions and with our campaigns. And it needs to stop somewhere. Anyway, Frankie, anything else you'd like to add before we disappear for another week?
No, not at all. I'm just looking forward to tuning into those silly friendlies that are in America. I don't know what we're doing out there, but I'm gonna watch them. I'm gonna get the online passes and looking forward to having a look.
I don't mind them, purely from a standpoint of it allows West Ham fans in America to go watch their football team. They may not be able to afford to get on a plane and come over, understandably. So the opportunity to see their team is few and far between. And there's some subscribers of ours that are from America, and they're getting to see their team for the first time ever, and they're really excited for it. I think that's a really good opportunity. It can be a bit inconvenient for the rest of us, but during the season, watching West Ham's inconvenient for them on a weekly basis.
I'm not sure it's the inconvenience thing. It was interesting. They done a big talk about this on TalkSport this morning. And they was looking at how this Jared Bowen actually came up in this, but also Declan Rice. And they was talking about how many games that the players now have to play over the course of a season.
Yeah.
And they was talking about Declan Rice. He's basically playing 70 games a season, because he plays 60 games for his club, and then he plays 10 international games for his country. And then you start talking about the taxing nature of, and I know everyone's going to say, look, they're footballers, they're on a lot of money, this isn't a big ask. But when they are away from their families for quite a lot of time and they don't get any break time and all this sort of stuff, it can have an effect on the players.
I agree. That's why I think it should be done on a player-by-player basis. I know Bowen and Paqueta are heading out there. Personally, I would have just left them be and said, come back when we get back to London. We'll see you in London. You've got the friendly, the Betway Cup. You've got a couple of weeks training before the season. These are professionals. Bowen's not going to turn up 6 stone overweight and require. He's been training all summer, arguably.
He's been training non-stop.
So I would just leave Bowen and Paqueta alone for this. I appreciate why they're going. They might want to go out there and impress Lopetegui, but I think I know what you're on about, because obviously the players, forgive me for not knowing the group off the top of my head, it's almost like the PFA, but for players, they're suing FIFA, aren't they? They're taking it to FIFA and saying that you're jeopardising player welfare. And Alvarez of Man City is one of the cases in point where he's played, his season started in July and finished in June or something, because he played for Argentina at Copa America. He's played for Manchester City throughout the season. He's made 6 to 8 appearances or something. But basically, his season was pretty much like 350 days long or something. So there's only almost like 2 weeks between each season. It's like, that's not right. That's not enough. Like, what's going on? So I know there's a campaign at the minute in terms of player welfare.
I think it's just common sense. If there's not an international year and there is an international tournament going on, and there's a bit more time that then we can
agree with that. That's
do these
fair.
things.
I agree with
think
that.
it's just common sense that there are right times to do these long distance tours. And again, just for me, if you would have had this international tournament going on, and I might get backlash from the American fans and everything else, West Ham's for everyone and everyone deserves it. This season, I would have just said, we've got a brand new manager, we've got new coaching staff, we've got a lot of drilling to do on the training ground. We've got players that are going to be missing right up until late on within pre-season. Let's just stay at home and make sure that we can just focus on getting ourselves ready for the new season this year. Next year, no international tournaments going on. You know, let's go and do a big tour of somewhere, and let's go out there and give everyone the best chance, and that's great, and no problem. I just think this season it would have made sense to stay closer to home.
That makes sense. And Florida as well. I'm not an expert in the weather in Florida, but I'm aware it's very hot and humid at this time of the year, and I think they're struggling to sell tickets for the matches as well. So there's even a low uptake on people attending these friendlies out in America. So there's obviously a commercial aspect, but even that doesn't seem to be reaching its potential. But there you go, West Ham. They can't even just a tour, right? Can they?
No.
Anyway, Frankie, thank you very much. A pleasure as always. I enjoyed these, so thank you. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to catching up with you next week. We'll have the friendlies to discuss. Hopefully, a signing, maybe even 2, possibly Jhon Duran.
Be good. We need it.
And maybe he's already caused chaos by the time we can catch up on our first podcast. Maybe he's already done something, like liked a Man City post or something on social media while he's a West Ham player. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But there's definitely going to be drama if we sign Jhon Duran. If you guys have enjoyed this podcast, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Helps out the video, helps out the channel. Subscribe to Hammers Chat. Myself and Frankie. Catch you in a bit.